80s toys from my attic, bringing you the greatest toys from the greatest decade. And today I have a very special guest. As always, I try to bring my longtime childhood friends. Me and this guy go way back, all the way back to a certain baseball team called True Value Hardware. Brian Pursglove, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Going great, buddy. You remember those days back on the field?
Yes, I was horrible.
You know who was the catcher?
Well, I was too.
We were both were. Yeah. We alternated. You know why? I don't think either of us were meant to be in the field. But so I brought out this picture. There we are. You're over there on the left.
Yep.
There's me, um, looking proud as can be, and there's my dad, the coach, which is why I guess I got to play a little more because I don't think I was very good either. We were going to have a third guest on tonight, and I was like, man, I thought he was on the team. Dwork hit the slide.
Well, he was a year behind.
There he is, right there. There's our next year. I found. There he is, right in the middle, Mr. Planich. There you are, buddy. Sorry you couldn't make it tonight. So we go way back, and tonight we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Dwork, hit the first slide, please. Uh-oh. There we go. Tonight we'll be talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Uh, it's the granddaddy of them all, of the role-playing games, of everything we know today about role-playing. This is pretty much where it all began. And I have special guest Brian Pursglove, who's been playing it for many, many years. I have Dwork across over there in the background, ready to chime in with some stupid shit, I'm sure. And then, of course, we have Paul behind the scenes. Thank you, Paul, who's going to be running the show behind the show, the slideshow. So that's what we have planned for you tonight. And as always, please don't forget to subscribe. Very important. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit it all. It's free of charge. Okay, so Dwork, hit the first slide. This is my first memory of Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. These books. Now, Brian, are these the original books that this is my first memory. Are these the first
Well,
books that came out?
no, there
No.
there were paperback ones. I mean, it first came out around like 73, 74.
Right.
This is the one on the right is the hardcovers from it was first edition. That was the advanced. I have the
Right.
second one of that right here. There we go. This was the more 80s version.
Oh, okay,
That
nice.
was the late 70s.
Yeah, so if I think I read, so was it 78? It branched off. There was Dungeons and Dragons and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And
Right.
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is obviously advanced. So what you just showed me, that's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. That's the same as the hardcover book, and then the other one's a box set. The one on
Okay, awesome. But George, can you put that back up, please? What about the red book, the player's manual?
well, that's a box set. I got that back here too.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a box,
Awesome.
so it had
So inside of it. Now, was that the basic set that you bought at the
yeah.
beginning?
Wait,
That's
well,
the
this is like just like the starter pack. They actually
Okay.
have come out with it again. It actually came with dice and everything. You had to get a crayon and color in the numbers. It was pretty
Really?
Looks like an instruction manual on how to not get a girlfriend.
Oh man.
pretty much.
George. I'll have you know, George, that we are happily married men after all these years. Maybe that wasn't the best pickup line, breaking out the Dungeons and Dragons action figures I had behind me, but we made it work eventually.
Eventually.
Instruction manual on how to not get a girlfriend. Um, so that was my first. So if you bought it, that's the first thing you're buying, right? That
Generally, yeah, you would end up with the box set.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Now I'm going to tell you about my first memory with Dungeons and Dragons. I played it one time. Like I played all sorts of things in my life, but I played it one time. I had two dudes down the street, the Lurch brothers, Chuck and Carl Lurch.
Oh, Carl Lurch.
Yeah, I keep
Yes.
hearing about this guy.
Dwork's got a real thing for Carl Lurch. So yes, Dwork, Carl Lurch. So Carl Lurch and his brother, they were always like, any toys that I had or Sexton or any of the other guys had, they were always a little different down the street. They had like when we had Atari and they had an Apple computer, and they would play games like, I think it was like Ultima and stuff like that back in the day. And they had Dungeons and Dragons role playing games. They had all their board games were completely like, I had Clue. I'd go over their house and they would have something I don't even see in the stores. I don't know where they even got these games from, but they were always on the cutting edge of that. I remember one time they had this Dungeons and Dragons magazine that was delivered to their house, something like that, and
Dragon.
they taught them how to do we used Play-Doh, and we would make our creatures, and based on the creature you made, you'd get a certain amount of hit points, strength, stamina, whatever the traits were. It was the coolest thing ever. I'm an idiot over here having fun playing with Play-Doh. I'm like, hey, Play-Doh, I'm good with that. They're over there, making up creatures they were a little more far advanced with the role-playing game than I ever was, but I always found it so exciting. So I go over for one game, and of course Chuck, he was like 2 years older than us. He was the dungeon master, and I remember looking at, he had the little like I do with kids taking a quiz, the little blocker so you can't see what's going on back there. But he, I had to peek, but he had grids with maps and maps. And like it looked like it was so much work. So we played, and I had a lot of fun that day. I never played again, so I don't know if I sucked, and they were like, don't ever have him back again. He doesn't understand the 20-sided die. His imagination is warped, if anything. So that was it. That was my only idea of ever playing the game. Now with you, what was your first memory of the game? Do you remember that?
Well, we used to play with Dan Carpenter.
Yes.
He's the one that got me into it. His older brother used to play. So
okay, I know Ben. He had an older brother too, though.
Others, yeah.
Okay.
He was like 3 years older, I think, something like that.
Gotcha.
4 or 5. No, he's older. But he got him into it, and his cousins were playing too. So, like in 5th grade, we started playing. And just
You've been playing ever since.
pretty much. I mean, there's been some times when I haven't played, but
Marriage, work.
Well, no, I'm playing in the entire marriage. It was, there was a lull in high school.
I know you play in a band. Maybe the band took over some of your time. Life happened to you. But for the most part, you've been playing pretty much your entire life almost.
Well, 35 years or so.
That's unbelievable. So that was your first experience with Dan Carpenter and those guys. It's always an older brother, isn't it? Introduces you to like cool stuff, music, whatever. So that was your first start. So you still play now. Does Dan still play with you? Is he part of your group now?
Not currently. I have played with him within the last like 10, 15 years.
Okay.
But we're old now, so marriage, kids,
yes,
stuff like that gets in the way of, juvenile games.
Right. Yeah, like podcast.
Hey.
You gotta schedule your podcast in between being married and your real job too. Yeah, it's something else. But here we are still playing. That's often. So how often would you say you and your new crew play? Do you play like weekly or?
We play once a week.
Every week you play?
Well, we hadn't played in almost a month and a half.
Okay.
We played the other night.
You did play the other night.
Yeah, we played the other night.
Nice. So
sounds like a sausage party.
Oh Jesus!
It usually is, yeah.
I don't have this on my questionnaire, but I'm gonna go with Jork on this one. Are there any girls involved? Do girls play in your group?
Not in this one, but I have played in groups with girls in them.
Okay.
Yeah, sure you have.
No, really.
Jork's going off script right now.
There's only 2, but it happened from time to time.
It happens. Well, every once in a while you'll find a female goblin.
Well, they want to play with their boyfriend, so
Exactly. They want to see what it's all about. Now, your wife specifically, is she in the Dungeons and Dragons, or does she tolerate it? No.
Well, it doesn't happen in this house, so she doesn't really bother with it too much.
Oh, it's not. I thought you were running it in your house. Okay.
No, we play at another guy's house.
Gotcha. Because I know how my wife is. Like, I got the fortress of fangs behind me. She's like, I'm so proud. So it's like they tolerate us. Okay, so what is your role in it? Are you the dungeon master?
Yeah, I'm currently the dungeon master. It's my first time actually. In the last 2 years, I've been doing it.
Oh, congratulations!
It's a lot easier to play. There's less to worry about.
So yeah, so it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah, it really can be.
So
I'm not really running like homebrew or anything. I'm running modules, so it's a little easier.
I don't know what is homebrew. Like for me, homebrew. You know what homebrew is? Homebrew is what I use to get my ROMs for Atari 2600 and everything. Is
Well, yeah, that was the site, right? Well, no. Homebrew is like you make it up all yourself.
okay?
So it's your world, your thing. You're not using a pre-created world.
Just like a soup, it's a homebrew.
Yes.
So how many people are in your group? Would you say
There's 6 of us.
6 of you? Okay. And does everybody show up every week? And if you're missing somebody, do they just get carried along? Do they have to catch up like the next week or?
Well, with this group, we've been pretty consistent. Everybody's been there.
Okay.
Or they play remote, like through a Zoom thing or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay. Now with being the dungeon master, and I'm sorry I have such noob questions, but like I've been wondering this ever since I was at Lurch's house. Like how much do you plan ahead for the dungeon master? Is it week to week? Do you set up your little maps like the week before, or do you have like months worth?
Well, like I said, I've been using modules, so they're pre-made.
Okay.
So basically, you just kind of read through them, and you have an idea of what's going on, where they're going, what's coming at them.
Okay.
But like I said, I've never really been a DM before, so.
So you don't want to start right off with creating all your material and doing all like start
Right.
with their material, get used to running it because just running it alone is a lot of work, right? I mean, you got to keep track of everybody
and know what they're doing, what they can do. You have to be able to tell them what they can do a lot of the times.
right. Like there's a door in front of you, or there's a pot of gold. Do you want to grab it? And they're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, Zarek the half orc jumps out and cuts their hand off. You make those decisions,
Yes.
or does the dice make those decisions?
Well, it depends on what is going on. Like if it's a random thing, you can use dice, or
Okay.
if it's already pre-planned, like that's going to happen when one thing triggers something else.
You know that as a dungeon master, and they don't. So you're like, do you want to open? And then you're like, wink, wink, and they're like, yeah, and you're like, yes, yes, yeah. That's how I would be a very mean dungeon master. I would try to lure people into shit all the time, but they would never. I mean, that's why I wasn't invited back to the Lurch's house. They saw that in me.
My ex-girlfriend was a dungeon master.
Different kind.
That's a different kind, Dork.
Oh, okay.
Much like that explains your attraction towards the Baroness. Actually, they had that sort of dungeon master look to her.
Oh, the Baroness.
You're a sick little boglin. You are a sick, sick little boglin. You know that? Oh, what roles back to civilization? What roles does everybody have on there? Like, you have like a barbarian, a dwarf, a cleric, a paladin. Like, what are they?
So right now we have Mike is a dragonborn paladin. So he's like kind of a dragon man paladin. Rob is a human fighter. Chico is he's a cat monk.
A cat?
Well, it's a race. I can't think of the name of the race right now.
Oh, but they are a race of cats.
Yes, and then
That's what I would be. Yeah.
Dan, I think, is I forget if he's human or elven bard, and
Okay.
Harry the wizard.
And you got a wizard, a bard, a paladin, a regular human fighter. Did they run out of shit that day? Like, why?
Well, no, it depends on what you want to play. I mean,
you just want to be a human fighter. Like, I'm just saying, I'm a human. If I were to play, make me something else. Make me a cat man. I like the idea of cat being a cat.
No boglins, huh?
No boglins. They got goblins.
I have played a game where I was a goblin.
There you go.
He had a 3 intelligence. It didn't go well.
No,
3 intelligence is bad.
Why? Oh, because he's so dumb?
That's the minimum.
Jork, it sounds like you do have a character in there. So that's awesome. But seriously, that's what I would be like. I would never be like, no offense, if your friend's watching this as a human player, no offense to you. I just personally, I'm a human now, I guess. I'd be a dork. I'd be some sort of a dork. Here's my other question. Do they die in it? Like, they obviously have hit points. What happens when they go to the bottom? Do they have to go home that night, or? Well,
it depends on what it is. So within 5th edition, you get taken down to 0 hit points. You get, as the fight continues, you get to roll the d20, and if you break 10, 3 times in a row, you live. You stabilize, and you don't die.
Okay.
You get 3 rolls under 10 or 10 and under, then you die.
It looks like you're gonna need to put that cat monk to sleep.
Well, this is Quib, and Quib was named after one of my old D&D characters.
Wow. Look at.
Oh, the dogs are making noise now.
Yeah, you should see her eyes in the camera right now. That's a great shot.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Oh my God. I love it. I love cats and dogs so much. So I promote all this right now. Dwark, you leave that cat alone. I could have Alf as a guest. That wouldn't go well. So they can. So say they do roll below 10 3 times in a row. Are they done for the night?
Well, then you just make a new character.
Oh, you make a brand new character.
Yeah.
But you can never use that character again. Like say you're like level 200.
Well, you would hope that wouldn't happen, but
it could.
Well, I mean, you'd have to play. Well, at this point, there's kind of a level cap right around 20, 25.
Okay.
Because at that point, you're basically like God level.
You don't need more than that.
Right. I mean, once you get to that point, usually you retire your character and you move on. You start a new campaign.
Gotcha. So if you lose that guy, it's not like you spent 20 years making them. I picture you guys making the same character. Like I play a current role-playing game, Neo 2 actually. It's awesome. And it's all that role-playing. You level up, you change your stats, and it's very cool, and it's just like this. So I love this sort of stuff. I was just never invited back to play it again. That was my main issue. But I do love this kind of stuff. But I've spent I don't even want to think about how many hours I spent on that game. And if that guy died and I didn't get him back, forget about it. You know what? My whole house should probably just avoid me for the next 5 days because I'm going to be moping around miserable.
I mean, you do get attached.
What's that?
You do get attached.
You do get attached. Yeah. You do. Absolutely.
Especially, like because you come up with a concept for your character. I mean, that's so you're just a human fighter, but you got a backstory.
Oh yeah.
That works out that way,
Yeah, even the human fight. I didn't mean to make fun of the human fight.
Oh, yeah.
I know. Listen, I know because even in Neo, I mean, you're part. Not keep bringing up, but you're human too. It's not like my guy runs around looking like a goblin. That would be pretty cool though. But that's more World of Warcraft type of stuff. But I understand you do get attached, and you're building it yourself, and that's. Everybody's completely different and unique. That's what people don't understand about these video games. Like, there's a million different possibilities you can make. Nobody out there is going to look like your guy, whether the way they're dressed, the way they're armored, anything. So I get that completely. You do become attached. Here's my other question: is the game endless? Is it just one endless game?
It can be. I mean, like I said, usually you get to a certain point, you kind of retire the characters,
all of them, and just start a brand new game.
Yeah, just start a new campaign.
Okay.
Right to the Hall of Fame.
Well,
right to the Hall of Fame. Thank you, Dork.
So the character that the cat here is named after, Quib, he was like a 16th level battle mage, and he basically in that world was kind of he's a badass, and he was a little evil, just a touch.
That's it too. You choose sides. You can choose if you're honorable or evil, right?
It's a sliding scale, really.
Oh.
So you got there's good, neutral, and evil is your basic.
Right.
And you have chaotic good, neutral good, or like chaotic good, true neutral, or chaotic good, good, lawful good. So you get somewhere in the you can kind of go wherever you want.
And as a dungeon master, you're like, there are some villagers here. They're pretty innocent, but they have a lot of gold. Do you want to kill them? And if you kill them, does that sliding scale kind of move you a little bit more towards evil? Is that what does it?
Well, you got to try and play the character the way you design them. So
okay, so you should make
design
decisions.
them as a good guy,
gotcha.
Generally you're a good guy.
Okay, I would think so.
I
would think so. I remember that with RPG games in general, people were doing horrible things when they first came out just to level up and get what they needed as the characters. And the creators actually made it where you would benefit from saving and being a good person, because they were like, we're creating these games where people are finding ways around. They're burning village. This is not what we intended. Like, so I remember I saw that the toys that made us. I think it was that. No, it wasn't that one. It was the other one. The one that just came out, the history of whatever. It was video games. It was one of those episodes, and they said that they're like, we made these video games, and people were like excelling super quick, but they were doing it the wrong way. So they gave you some sort of penalties later on, like you can't have this sword because you were a dick an
Right.
hour ago. So I get that. Yeah, it's good.
Well, they embrace that with like Fable and now
Right.
Fallout and all those games kind of embrace that too.
All
So
of
you
them
can
do.
decide where you want to be. You want to
Right.
be a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's as much as you want, as much as you want that, even like Red Dead Redemption. I remember I had these two guys on a train, and they were completely innocent, and they had something. My wife was watching me. I took them both out because I thought it was a trick. I thought they were going. I had to explain to my wife for the next 5 minutes. I said, "No, you don't understand. Those guys. I think they were going to turn on me." She's like, "You just no. They were innocent." I said, "Well, it turns out they were. I didn't know that at the time." So yeah, you got to make decisions in life. That's
Where
what I
where
tell them.
where's you find the time to read all those books?
Well,
Those books behind you, by the way, majority Dungeons and Dragons
like I said, they're novels,
novels.
like source books, but you know, Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, uh, Game of Thrones is up there, some Warhammer, Greyhawk, Ravenloft, all
So
sorts of stuff.
everything is just so. If it's not Dungeons and Dragons, it's very related.
Well, I mean, there's some Stephen King.
Little Stephen King, okay, but
Uh,
that's amazing. You are stocked back there. Um, I think that's as far as my crazy questions. As well. Like I've had these questions for 35, 40 years. So, Dwark, hit the next slide. Here's my last question about it. Are these the
right.
standard dice? Is this what you get with the game? Is it always, how many is that? 7? Do you always get those 7 die?
Well, yeah, you need each one of them for different purposes. You're gonna usually have more than one of most of them.
Oh,
Like,
okay. So you'll have more than one 20-sided die.
well, I bought a pound of dice not too long ago, so I have a I have a lot of dice.
You have a lot of them.
What's
Yeah.
a pound of dice go for these days?
It's about 10, $12.
Hmm.
Oh,
Amazon.
that's not too bad. That's a good rate, right, Dwark? That's not a bad rate.
I just use an 8-ball. I don't
Well,
roll
there's an
dice.
eight-sided die. I don't know if that'll help.
Dwark is something else tonight. Gonna require a lot of editing tonight, Dwark. So anyway, there's the dice. I've always been curious about that. So many different ones. It all depends on the situation, though, is what you're telling me.
Right. So, like, your 20 is the one you use the most. That's your roll to hit. If you're going to try and like jump over something or uh, make a saving throw, your D20.
Okay.
The other ones are more situational. There's the two 10-sided die. There's the one with the 30 and the 4 on top. That's
They're
they're
both 10-sided, though. Okay.
right. So you would roll both of them, and then you get a number from 1 to 100, and that's a percentile thing. Usually, there's a list you're going to be rolling for. So, like for loot or something, you might roll that and decide what you're going to get.
Oh, okay.
The D12 is the much neglected die. It's very rarely used. I don't know why, but it is. Then the
You just don't
D4,
use it that much. Okay.
it just doesn't get used. The
Right.
D4 is one you never want to step on. It's worse than a Lego.
Oh, yeah, look at that. That's sharp.
It's a pyramid.
Yeah.
It's not moving. It goes right in. It's painful.
And that the top of the pyramid, it looks like something in the Fortress of Fangs, actually. It looks pretty damn sharp.
Well, that looks like a rounded one. There's some like some of the old ones were actually very pointy.
Even pointier. Wow. Nice.
And then well, like the 8-sided, that's usually for damage. 6-sided, you use that to roll your stats and damage, depending on the weapon.
Okay. Cool. So there's something for everything, and as the dungeon master, you have to know all that. That's a lot. That's a lot to do. What was I thinking? So anyway, with the original books of dice. So back in the 80s, here's the big stigma that came with it.
Oh yeah.
You're Satan worshipers. You're a bunch of lunatics. Oh, whatever happened? Yeah. Oh, you buried your guy alive in the game. Get out back. We're burying you alive. That's what's going to happen. the truth about Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, exactly. They scared the shit out of us. So, and I would see it on the news every once in a while, and it would equate to like I see stuff with video games nowadays where people like or Beavis and
Oh yeah.
Butthead. Oh, the guy lit the other guy on fire because of Beavis and Butthead. I'm like, well, how stupid can you be to believe a cartoon? So they did that to us, and I think I remember like even my parents having talks. You going down to Lurch Boy's house? All right, be careful down there. Don't be don't be touching any weird taboo statues or shit like that because they appeared to be into like I don't know the occult I guess to parents, but to me it was just like it was imagination. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was everything. And actually I did it with pro wrestling too. In the wrestling books they had a role playing game called the Galactic Wrestling Federation, and it came in the mail. I get all these cards. That I played by myself, and I had my own league and everything. I was like Paul with his Dungeons and Dragons. I played completely by myself, and I had a blast. I actually wouldn't want anybody to play with me because they would just intrude on my ideas, and
Right.
it was like my game. But like that was tame enough for my mom or whatever. But I think a lot of parents back then looked at it, and then they saw this made-for-TV movie. Jork, hit the slide, please. Tom Hanks, Mazes and Monsters. So instead of Dungeons and Dragons, it's Mazes and Monsters. And I,
They,
I had
they,
three
they wouldn't
choices
let
of
them use
pictures, and I found these pretty funny. Like I picture the first one being Tom Hanks at the beginning of the movie, being like all, naive. Hey guys, what are we playing? A game? And he's all like happy. He's like big Tom Hanks. And then
No, I
in the
think that's
second one,
actually
he's
Big.
like,
I
I'm
think
a
that's the picture
sorcerer
from
or I'm a
Big.
cleric. I'm a mage. I'm wearing the outfit. I'm fitting the role. And then the third one, he's looking up, going, "Shit's about to get real. Shit's happening right now." So I picture these are the three stages of Tom Hanks. I made this slideshow like 2 in the morning last night in between watching Coach and Becker. So you got to understand, my mind might have been a little warped. But you saw this movie, and
Actually, I just watched it a couple weeks ago for the
you
first time.
watched it again.
No, I
So
never seen it before.
you never saw it. Oh, okay. I remember watching it when it first came out, and I thought this was really happening because I read it's based off an actual like this guy went missing, and the whole mythological thing started happening. Well, oh, he was in the Dungeons and Dragons. He must have went and someone killed him with a special spell or something. It's like people actually believe that. And the myth, the guy wrote the movie based on the myth. And this game, they all start out very innocent, but they were all like from broken homes. The one guy had schizophrenia. They were all like a little off. So
Right.
it was all, they almost treat it like drugs. Like people go towards substance abuse when they have problems in their life. They treated Dungeons and Dragons like that, which I thought was kind of weird. And then the one guy got really into it, Tom Hanks. Robbie, was his name Robbie?
I
I think it
think
was
so. Yeah.
it was Robbie. So Robbie goes missing. Robbie ends up murdering a mugger. He stabs him or something because he thinks the shit's real. Then he's going to jump off the Twin Towers or like this is my warped memory of what I saw back then. So correct me if I'm wrong, but Robbie ends up in some sort of is he in like a mental institution at the end?
Yeah.
Because he
Well, I think he's actually at his parents' house at the end,
oh, it's his parents'
but
house. Okay,
I think he spent some time in a facility in the
that's
movie. They just
yeah.
didn't really emphasize that. Well, the guy that is based off of was off balance to start with,
Okay,
and he was he was trying to kill himself. He didn't succeed there. And then they sent him away, and eventually he did manage to kill himself.
he did,
He did. It was
but not because of Dungeons and Dragons, because
no,
he
because he
really
was
did have
messed up in the head.
problems. Yeah,
Yeah. So and it, but yeah, and the movie is pretty funny to watch now.
it is.
If you can find it, it's pretty entertaining.
Especially since it's Tom Hanks. Like that's the
Right.
funniest part. You're like, aren't you Uncle Ned drinking vanilla extract from Family Ties? I just saw you last week drinking vanilla extract. Now you're a wizard that's taking it too seriously. Too much vanilla
Thought you were a
extract.
bosom buddy.
He was a bosom buddy. Absolutely.
So
He's
there's a
either
cross-dressing
cross dressing, drinking vanilla extract, or becoming a high cleric priest that takes the game too serious. His roles were unbelievable back then. It's amazing he's the same guy from Philadelphia and Big. But yeah, so it's so funny that it's Tom Hanks. I found that amusing. But I'm going to rewatch that because I just have some vague memories of it that are they're just weird.
Ever
But
see that movie Splash?
yeah, Splash.
Oh, that mermaid.
Daryl Hannah.
Daryl Hannah, yeah, Daryl Hannah. But Dork, you wouldn't know what to do with a mermaid. You better stick with the Baroness, where she tells you what to do.
The Baroness.
Back to the Baroness. Back to the Baroness. So that was the movie. There was a big stigma. Did your parents ever give you shit about it, or
Not really, no.
no? Right? I
But,
mean,
you know your kids. They're not going to be.
you know your kids. If and like listen, if you were like a weird dude, and you were like out in the back burying squirrels and shit, they'd probably keep you away from this game.
Right.
But like me and you, Paul, I can't speak for Dwark, but the three of us, we grew up in Haddon Township. We had pretty, we were the catchers on True Value Hardware.
Yeah.
We had a good head on our shoulders. Not the greatest baseball players, but we had a good head on our shoulders. And I think our parents understood that we know the difference between being a goblin and being, ourselves. So
Yeah.
I get that. I get that completely. But at the same time, they're watching the news going, what if? What if? Well, that's a lot of material. We've covered so much. I've learned so much tonight, and I feel like we didn't even hit the toys or anything yet. I think this might be a 2-part episode. Would you be willing to come back, Brian?
Sure.
Awesome, because I can't find a better person in this world that knows about the other realm of Dungeons and Dragons than you. So I'd love to have you come back. Dork would love to have you come back. So everybody, stay tuned for part number 2. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss part number 2. Thank you, Brian, for coming. Thank you, Dwark. And thank you, Paul. And as always, we continue to bring you the greatest toys from the greatest decade. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.